We are very privileged and deeply honoured to have with us in the studio Karl Marx, founder of modern socialism and author of the Communist Manifesto.
Karl Marx was born in 1818 in Trier, in what's now Germany. Like me, he studied law and philosophy, and that's the first and last of our similarities. He's widely known for his successful career as the co-president of the Trier Tavern Club Drinking Society. But he also banged out a few small theories in his lifetime, nothing major, he's not super famous. I wanted to go for a more niche philosopher for this video, but today we're going to be focusing on those small theories of his. Marx wanted to make sense of the chaos which is our history. Like, why do wars happen? Why do revolutions happen? Are these events just random occurrences, or is there a greater pattern behind it all? And once we identify that pattern, how can we use it to best prevent wars and revolts from happening again? Marx was inspired by Hegel, another German philosopher, to analyze history and search for patterns. And if you want to know what Hegel said, do check out my most recent video that I did on him. But basically, Hegel concluded that history isn't random. There is a pattern behind each event.
There is an order to things.
And Marx agreed with this. However, he felt that our world, and therefore our history, is solely driven by economic forces. Every great war or revolution happened because of a change in the way the economy was running. For Marx, all we care about as humans is being able to produce, trade, and therefore survive. If the system we live under no longer supports this basic economic requirement, Marx says it's doomed to fail. So when a system stops working for a majority of people, it gets overthrown.
We will unite in revolution.
And that's how history continues to move. For example, feudal times worked for as long as landowners held the majority over peasants. And capitalism would work for as long as factory owners could hold the majority over industrial workers. Capitalism, Marx's mortal enemy. This is where Marx started getting cold feet, you could say, about capitalism. Given the pattern of our world history, Marx saw capitalism as another system that would eventually fail.
I think everyone here agrees that capitalism doesn't work.
As industrial workers were holding the majority over factory owners. And that can never end well, can it?
Money!
Historically, every economic system has created differing and opposing social classes. In a capitalist system, Marx distinguished between two different classes. First is the bourgeoisie.
That's fun to say.
These are the business owners, the factory bosses, the people that own production and sell the goods. And then there's the proletariat. And these are the workers, the people who own bare scrappings and sell their labor to survive. Now, these two sides will inevitably clash, a dialectic, if you will, as the bourgeoisie want profit. Bigger, better, more, and who cares at what cost?
Squeeze every penny! Squeeze every penny!
To them, human lives may be considered more expendable. And the proletariat, whose lives are being treated as expendable, obviously want that to change. They want fair pay and decent welfare. And so to Marx, this conflict isn't just a bug in the system that will go away.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
But it will fester and grow until the proletariat have had enough. Riots, revolts, and an overthrow of the government will ensue. So Marx felt like the entire system of capitalism would eventually collapse. It could never work out long term.
Question number one. Are you nervous? The development of the industrial proletariat is conditioned by what other development?
The development of the industrial bourgeoisie.
Yes, it is indeed.
But before we jump into what Marx thought would happen after capitalism would collapse, communism, there were still other issues he identified with capitalism. And these are issues that influenced his prediction of communism. So let's go over them. The first issue being alienation. Marx wasn't just focused on the economic faults of capitalism, but also the psychological effects that capitalism could have on the proletariat. He feared that workers in a capitalist society were too alienated. And what did he mean by this? In capitalism, workers aren't able to control what they make, how they work, or even how they connect with others. They very much become a cog in the machine. You're alienated from your work as you don't get to choose or own what you produce. You're alienated from the process of your work as you're told exactly what to do. You don't get that opportunity to learn and to grow. You're alienated from other people because you're constantly competing with them and not connected. And really, you're alienated from yourself as your creativity and humanity gets crushed under a managerial thumb. Mic drop. So not only is capitalism exploiting the proletariat, it's dehumanizing them. For Marx, an ideal economic system and society would not let humans be treated in this way. Further, exploitation is literally built into the capitalist system. Marx argued that even if you had a kind boss, or if the majority of the bourgeoisie cared about the well-being of their workers, it wouldn't make much of a difference. And why is this? Well, it's basic economics.
People forget that Karl Marx was the greatest economist who ever lived.
Workers are paid less than the value of what they produce. So, say you're buying a $10 top from Shein, the worker who created that product is being paid a fraction of that price. The rest of that money, which is the surplus value, goes straight into the pocket of the boss, the owner, or the bourgeoisie. So look, economics 101 on a philosophy channel. But the point is, capitalism is even more dehumanizing when you look at it in this way. Not even the humanity of the bourgeoisie matters. In that sense, we're all cogs in the greater machine.
We don't need no force control.
Now, communism is the system that Marx theorized would form once capitalism collapsed. To be clear, Marx never said we should artificially uproot the capitalist system we live in now and replace it with communism. Rather, capitalism will see itself out, and then communism will naturally form. So the Communist Manifesto, and we'll get to that in a second, isn't a guide on how to rebuild society. It's predicting what might happen when capitalism falls and acts as a political call to arms for when it does. So now, putting that disclaimer aside, what is communism? In 1848, Marx and his best mate Frederick Engels published the Communist Manifesto, which details what a communist society might look like. When I get together with my friends, we discuss the intricacies of Love Island, not the current state of our society. Then again, is there much difference? But maybe after a few pints in the Trier Tavern drinking club, he'd get me talking. Marx thought that this society would be classless, reject all exploitation, and not allow private ownership of a means of production. Which makes sense. The proletariat would want to create a system which rejects everything that they suffered from under the system of capitalism. In theory, in a communist society, you would work in what you wanted to and because you wanted to.
So this is your job? This is what you want for a career?
Nobody would be there to exploit your labor or force you to work in an alienating environment. This could be achieved because of the abolishment of private ownership of the means of production, like factories, land, capital. It would mean no individual or company could profit off the labor of others. As Marx put it, from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. You contribute what you can, you receive what you need. Marx's communist vision is interesting, but purposefully vague. Marx did not concern himself with the logistics of how communism would work.
No problem.
It was his successors who tried to put it into practice. But first, his critics.
Now we're stirring the pot, baby.
The first big critique of Marx is that his predictions kind of failed. Ouch. I mean, look around us. In many parts of the world, capitalism hasn't collapsed.
I'm a capitalist.
Rather, it seems to have adapted. Labour laws, unions, welfare states, and social reforms have since softened it and welcomed the creation of a middle class. Other critics have a bone to pick with his historical materialism, saying that his idea that economics drives everything is way oversimplified. Is it really fair to say that every historical event can be boiled down to a class struggle? Regardless, Marx has had a massive influence, namely on political movements and revolutions. Lenin claimed to be following Marx's ideas in the Russian Revolution, though of course with significant differences. And Mao adapted Marxism for the peasant-led Chinese Revolution. The welfare state and labor protections, which, as I said earlier, are part of the reasons that capitalism continues to thrive, well, we ironically owe its roots to Marx's ideas, which pressured capitalist societies to reform after his critiques and demands of better pay, working conditions, and rights. So whether you agree with Marx's ideas or not, you have to admit that they had a profound influence on society. But I'm curious to hear what you think. Do you agree with all Marx wrote or not? Let me know in the comments.